Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone here and welcome those of you who are watching us online. We're glad we made it to our third night, and as we gather together for this final night of our parish mission, I want to begin with deep gratitude. Gratitude for the gift of these days, for the spirit that all of you have brought here, and especially for the reflections Deacon Steve Meyers has shared with us. This week, Steve has invited us not simply to believe, not simply to show up, but to live life like we mean it. To let our faith take flesh in the way we speak, and the way we listen, the way we forgive, and the way we serve. His words have been honest, challenging, humble, and full of hope. He has reminded us that the gospel is not an idea we admire from a distance, but a life we are called to embody with intention and courage. Many of us have found ourselves nodding, laughing, tearing up, and maybe even getting nudged by the Spirit in ways we didn't expect. That's the sign of a good mission and the sign of a preacher who speaks from his heart. So tonight, as we come to this final session, we do so with gratitude for the insights that have opened our eyes, gratitude for the stories that have touched our hearts, gratitude for the invitation to live our lives with purpose, depth, and authenticity. Deacon Steve, thank you for walking with us, for challenging us, and for reminding us who we are as disciples. Let us now join in welcoming back Deacon Steve Meyers.
Thank you. Just thank you so much, and let me just continue that note of gratitude because I like to be silky smooth with transition. So first, thank you to all of you. I mean, your warmth and hospitality and embracement of me these last 5 days has been extraordinary, and I cannot ask for a better community of people to welcome me. So I can't thank you so much. It is truly a gift to be able to come and be with you. And the fact that I've been able to do this twice just feels like I've just dipped my toe into some sort of greedy self-absorption or something. I just don't deserve that. But so thank you for that. And thank you to Father Phil for the invitation to come back. And of course, you all know Father Phil and what a fabulous and amazing host he is, and in all ways. And I would need to thank Dave Barassi, who's in the back, and Baird Books and 23rd Publishing for helping us sponsor this mission and picking up the tab to bring me here, because I asked Delta if they would fly me for free, and they said no. Yeah, right? I mean, I said it's a good cause, good people. So we want to thank them along the way. And there are still some books in the back if you want to get them afterwards. I know that the one we've been focusing on is sold out, but if you want any of them for gifts or for yourself, or whatever the case might be, Dave, I believe, is writing orders and offering free shipping right to your house, so you don't even have to lug them home. So that's all available. So, and obviously I have to thank Hillary, because geez, people who know me well know that they need to bring patience to the relationship. And Hillary has been remarkably kind and generous and patient in supporting us this week. So thank you. Please join me in our mission prayer. Creator God, source of all life and love, guide us as we mission forward into an ever-widening search for meaning, an ever-deepening encounter with understanding, and an ever-unfolding experience of mystery. Lead us to live as the rivers through which the waters of your love flow upon all you have created. Amen. I was in Spokane, Washington on business a few years ago in late November, and it was a long and cold day. It's just raining all day, and it was just November chilly in the Pacific Northwest. And I was in meetings all day long, and then I had to do the obligatory dinner with clients and stuff, and it was going on 9 o'clock before I finally got back to my hotel. And I just couldn't wait to just crash, right? And my room was like on the 14th or 15th floor, and it's at the end of a hallway, and around it's like turn a corner, and in a little nook there was the door to my room. And as I'm approaching the end of the hallway, looking to where my room is, I could see around the corner a little bit, and I saw like some shadowy movement. And as I got closer, cautiously, I realized that there was a man hiding right outside my room around that corner. I had no interest in dealing with that. So I called out to him aggressively, "Hey, what are you doing outside my room?" And he got very flustered, and he was shocked and surprised. Oh, I'm sorry. And he stuttered and he stumbled, and he grabbed a backpack, and he ran past me and ran away. And then I realized what was happening, right? This was a homeless individual from downtown Spokane who had snuck into the hotel to escape the cold, rainy night and was trying to find a place to hide. And I went in my room, and I locked the door, and then I called the front desk and said, "Hey, you've got this guy wandering around your hallways here." And then I sat on the bed and wept a little bit. And I felt so ashamed. I felt so utterly ashamed. Christ had shown up on my doorstep, and I wasn't prepared. And because I wasn't prepared, I responded by chasing him away, locking the door, and calling security. And my prayer that night had 3 pieces. I prayed for the man. I prayed for this sacred person who was created in the image and likeness of God. I prayed that he find warmth and welcome and comfort and security. Secondly, I prayed for forgiveness. I said, "Just please forgive me." And then third, it felt a little bit audacious, but I dared to pray for another chance. Give me another chance. It didn't take long. About 4 months later, I was in Peoria, Illinois. It was in April. And similar night, kind of chilly. And in meetings all day, out for dinner, back to the hotel. Now it's going on 9:30. And I wheel into this. There's a parking lot behind this hotel, is like kind of off an alley with the back of another building on one side and a big parking ramp on another side. And it's poorly lit and dim. And I pull into a parking spot, and as I get out, I'm approached by this very large man who also was homeless. And this time I was prepared. And I turned, I didn't know his story, I didn't know anything about him, I just saw this very large guy coming at me, and I turned and I welcomed him and said, "Hi, is there something I can do to help you out?" And he explained his story, and he wasn't asking for handouts, he said. He wanted to earn it. So his goal in life was to sing in a gospel choir. And it was this famous gospel choir that he mentioned that I was supposed to know, but I had never heard of, so I just went along. Oh, yeah. And his offer to me is that he would sing for me. And if I felt he had talent and would qualify for this gospel choir, perhaps I would give him a little something toward helping him get indoors. And I'm okay, I accepted those terms. So he then belted out this amazing, deep, silken, gorgeous rendition of Amazing Grace. And it just reverberated off of the concrete walls, and it filled the night air with pure gold. He was so powerful. And when he was finished, he and we talked for a little bit, and we embraced, and we went our separate ways. And as I went back toward the hotel, there was a woman outside the door who had stayed there and watched the whole scene unfold. And as I approached, she was wiping tears from her eyes, and she said, "That was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And indeed it was. And the difference between what happened in Spokane and what happened in Peoria was me. It was the condition of my heart. It was what I brought to the moment. It wasn't anything to do with anything else. It was the heart that I brought to the moment. See, we don't know when Christ is going to show up. We don't know where Christ is going to show up. But we do know a little bit about how. Because he came once before. And in a few weeks, you will come into this church and you will celebrate this great nativity narrative, this great Christmas narrative that we've been sharing for generations upon generations. And in that narrative, we're all going to see how Christ chooses to enter the world. We're looking for meaning. We're looking for purpose. And it comes right at us in the love of Christ. There it is. And what does the narrative tell us? It tells us that when Christ chooses to enter the world, he comes as poor, homeless, marginalized, immigrant. Right after he's born, he becomes a refugee and has to flee to Egypt. That's how he enters the world. He doesn't enter the world from the context of structure, institution, wealth, power, education. He comes among the most humble of the humble. And we have to ask ourselves, are our hearts prepared to welcome a Christ who is without a home? He'll tell us later, the birds have nests to sleep in, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Are we prepared to welcome a Christ who is on the edges of poverty with no place to go? Because later he will tell us, I was homeless and you gave me shelter. I was a foreigner and you welcomed me. Are we willing to embrace a Christ who was a refugee, who comes to us as a refugee and later will tell us, what you do for the least, you do for me? Are we ready to embrace that? Because that's where we're going to find meaning. That's where we're going to find deep and profound meaning in our lives? Are we prepared to respond when Christ enters our life with love and not with fear? When I was in Spokane, I responded with fear. In Peoria, I was prepared to respond with love. Are we prepared to serve others and not just serve ourselves? Are we prepared to choose wholeness with all God's people and not choose brokenness? I have this book coming out in February called The Whole of Our Soul. And I just wanted to read briefly something that's from that book. We seem to be living in an extremely stressful time. Anxiety is almost epidemic even among school children. It appears that nearly everyone lives on a knife's edge, one hat drop away from personal or social collapse. Why? None of us wants to live this way. It's not the life experience we hope for, nor is it the world we want for our kids. Yet, here we are, not even realizing we have a choice or that we are contributing to this dynamic. Stress and anxiety trick our mind into thinking something is amiss, that danger is afoot. Such perceived threats trigger a primal instinct for self-preservation, causing us to become even more self-concerned and self-focused. In other words, stress drives us deeper into the grips of individualism, causing us to mistrust and fear one another more and more. To make it worse, a continuous toxic stream of political programming and social media is stoking the fires, as investors have figured out how to monetize and profit from anxiety and animosity. If there is one thing that makes our time in history different from previous eras, perhaps it is that people have figured out how to turn fear and hate into a product they can sell for money. I'm certain corporate executives would argue with me, but this is largely how talk radio, 24/7 cable news, and social media drive their profits. Instead of building communities of love and contribution, we're riding individualism toward fear and consumerism. The default litmus for all decisions, ranging from spiritual practice to public elections, is, what do I have to gain? And not, what do I have to give? We consistently choose personal security over loving vulnerability, leading to a society that with more people carrying guns, building more walls, and living behind more locked doors. We are choosing to live in fear of one another rather than in love for one another. Why? We have changed our purpose from brotherhood to individualism. In Christian parlance, we have chosen to take up the sword rather than take up the cross. If we want to live with meaning, we can't find our center when we're dizzy. We spend so much of our time on the hamster wheel of busyness. We talked last night about focusing so much on the what and not on the why. And we focus on the what, and I use the word water bug as a verb. We water bug our way across the surface of life, never going deep, because we're just churning with such busyness. But we can't find our center when we're dizzy. We need to slow down and we need to contemplate. We need to take that deep breath, feel our feet on the floor, and fill our lungs with the life breath and moving air of the Holy Spirit. And then we need to wrestle with our shadow side. We need to recognize that we are all pilgrims on a path toward wholeness. We are fractured. We have this dissonance. We talked about that in the homily this weekend. We have this dissonance between our heads and our hearts, between our values and our behaviors, between what we believe and the attitudes we carry into the world sometimes. On our best days, we're whole. Other days, not so much. But we need to wrestle with our own shadow side instead of running from it, because oftentimes we want to ignore it or run away from it or deny it. But we need to wrestle with it. And then we need to trust the journey and encounter our own authenticity. We often don't want to trust our journey. We want to shape our journey. We want to make our own plans. What do coaches, good coaches teach their athletes? That professionalism means being comfortable with discomfort. Because that first night, I went and sat out on a street corner with Streetlights Outreach at midnight in a dicey neighborhood. That was so uncomfortable, I got to tell you. Oh. But learning to be comfortable in our discomfort, because that's the only way we grow, and we have to trust the journey along the way. A number of years ago, when I was real young, I got to find the right page here. When I was starting out as a wannabe writer, I received a job, a commission from the Menominee tribe in Wisconsin, and they've been on their land. It's believed that they've been there for 8,000 years. There's no written record, right? And they wanted to do something. They wanted me to write something about their history. So I needed to access to the archives in their tribal library, and I had an appointment with a guy named Cy Whitehawk. Now, what you need to know about Cy is that he is a retired FBI agent, and he's intimidating as heck for a guy like me. And Cy, he was in the FBI in San Francisco. He moved back to his tribal lands, as he told me, to give back to a people who had given him so much. So I was running late that morning. I had a meeting with him at 9 o'clock, and I got held up, and I was running late, and I was embarrassed. As I dashed into the small library that morning, my necktie and overcoat, because we wore ties and overcoats back then, flew in behind me cartoonishly. Cy Whitehawk sat peacefully at a table facing the door. He wore the official uniform of a man who has nothing left to prove to anyone: blue jeans, a flannel shirt, and work boots. "You're late," he barked. "I'm so terribly sorry, Mr. Whitehawk. I mean no disrespect, but I stopped into the office before driving out here, and you know how it is with messages and such. I stumbled and rambled like a hungover college student, explaining to his professor why his term paper is late." "Anyway," I said, 3 different people caught me on the way out, and by the time I got out of there, it was 8:30, and I thought I could still make it on time, but there was farm traffic on the highway. I got stuck behind a tractor, and what should..." "Stop." Cy took a deep breath and let the silence own the moment. I could hear the clock ticking in a nearby office, and all the air in the library became his again. He smiled and spoke with slow deliberation. "If you get this worked up over 15 minutes, then you need to sit in silence for a bit and reconnect with the Great Spirit." Was he telling me to shut up and pray? I tried to look stoic and appreciative, even though inside I was churning with vulnerability. My ruse was exposed, my soul laid bare. I reeked of insecurity, poorly masked by a drugstore cologne labeled "Ode to Self." and he picked up my true scent even before the door closed behind me. Rather than put me at ease, he told me to shut up and pray. And to make matters worse, I knew he was right. It wasn't just good instruction in the moment. It was good advice for a lifetime. Here's what we're going to do. He spoke in a soft but authoritative voice. There would be no negotiation. I'm going to finish reading this article. It'll take about 10 minutes. While I do that, you'll just sit there and breathe. When I'm done, we'll get coffee and hit the archives. He lowered his head and continued reading. Slouching into the chair across from him, I reached for a Time magazine strewn among other periodicals on the wide oak table between us. As if by pure intuition or due to my transparent predictability, he slapped his bear-like hand on top of the exact issue I was reaching for without looking up and commanded very firmly, "Just sit." I recoiled and just sat, waiting, pondering, breathing, and mostly replaying his words mantra-like in my mind. If you get this frazzled, sit in silence, reconnect with the Great Spirit. The adrenaline rush of a packed schedule was all I had known since high school. I was the antagonist in the Cat Stevens song, Father and Son, in which a man advises his presumably young adult son that life's happiness is found in slowing down, in pondering dreams and taking inventory of blessings, not in all the motion and commotion to which we easily get addicted. Many years later, when I was the father with adolescent sons, I would realize how spiritually immature the ambition of my younger self really was. I had tried to run away from my superficial self and run toward my imagined self without realizing these were two versions of the same ego-driven illusion. Neither was real, and both were created in my own mind rather than in God's image. I wanted significance and importance. I wanted to matter, but my life's focus was on the noun I rather than the verb contribute. We talked last night about being contributors to life, not consumers of life, and how much of our life's journey, as we search for this meaning and we search for this purpose, how much of it do we need to invest in closing the gap between self-identity and self-reality, between who we imagine ourselves as, and who God actually created us to be, the image of God we were created to share in the world. Purpose, finding purpose in our lives requires us to be honest with ourselves about ourselves, because we're not always. We like, what did Freud say? Every man is a hero in his own mind, or however that goes. We have these senses of who we think we ought to be, who we think we want to be. But we need to have faith that God got us right. When God created each one of us in God's own image and likeness, with the intention of using that image and likeness to be a channel of love in creation. He got it right. God got us right. And we can believe that, and we can rest in that, and we can hold on to that. And to find purpose, we have to sit and listen in faith that we are who God created us to be, and be honest with ourselves about that, and accept it lovingly, fully, wholly. We all want to be well-adjusted, joyful, and inspired people with vision beyond the tip of our own nose. We want to think of ourselves as imaginative people who set ego aside and serve a good greater than the self, people who bring a developed combination of personality, humanity, and grounded spirituality to whatever we do. Well, maybe we don't all want that, but scoundrels and psychopaths aside, most of us do. Somehow, though, there often is a gap between how we want to self-identify and how we live. I want to be giving, but I'm often selfish. I want to be compassionate, but I'm often judgmental. I want to be peaceful, but I'm often anxious. The list of contrasts goes on. A great portion of our adult lives is spent wrestling with the stress caused by this gap. It perplexes us, yet few of us are aware that we're the ones who put it there. We create the gap through our own internal disharmony. It's a choice we make without even realizing that we're making it. Using the language of our ancestors, I suppose we could think of it as a form of original sin. The idea that we all inevitably live in the gap between our spiritual authenticity and the daily grind of life. For example, my wife, Michelle, loves me in the depths of her beautiful soul. Her spiritual intention is to live in loving harmony with me. But when I track dirt across her freshly washed floor, she wants to scream me out of her life. Thus, the daily grind of life stirs an emotional response that conflicts with her desire for a calm, centered life. Thankfully, Michelle has figured out how to reconcile that tension, and most often she chooses to center on her intention, which is forgiving love, rather than react to her understandable frustration. She lives from the inside out. I am blessed. Simultaneously, my spiritual intention is to live in peaceful harmony with Michelle. So why would I track dirt into the house in the first place if I know it bothers her? Well, because in the daily grind of life, I sometimes lose connection with my spiritual intention, and I don't think beyond the tip of my own nose. People who know us both like her better, obviously. We would be wise to step back, hitch up our self-awareness britches, and admit something to ourselves. All the human institutions we readily complain about are merely aggregations of the people who comprise them. So it should come as no surprise that they are rife with dissonance and hypocrisies. We, all of us, live with chronic dissonance. We say we want one thing, but our choices and actions would suggest something else. We are remarkably self-contradictory. It is very difficult to authentically live from the inside out when we lie to ourselves or when we bend reason and tint our own lenses to avoid confronting our own contradictions. One of the things we struggle with is this idea that we think meaning is out there, that it is a destination, that it's something we will achieve, something we will reach, something we will get to in one place or another. A number of years ago, the former CEO at Microsoft threw the business plan out the window, and he said, we've been measuring success based on achievement. I want to measure success based on progress, on movement. Movement is more important than destination. So we have this ideal sometimes that we think we need to be, and I don't know, I mean, there might be some saints who got there. Steve ain't getting there, right? But the point is, Are we moving toward that? Do we hold up Christ's own life as the example that we seek to emulate and realize, you know what? The fact that I'm not there doesn't mean I'm failing, because I'm on a journey and I'm progressing and I'm moving toward it. And meaning, the meaning of life, purpose in life, is more often found in the movement than in the destination. So we should dare to be star chasers. Go ahead, make it a North Star, make it an aspiration. That's okay. But then keep yourself navigating toward that star ever deeper, ever farther. I wrote this book a few years back called Jesus Wears Socks with Sandals. And there's a story in there called Star Chasers about the Magi. Do you ever wonder what the neighbors must have said? They're doing what? Following a star? Do you know what a trip like that's going to cost? It must be nice. Don't you think they're getting too old for this sort of thing? Who's going to mind the store while they're off gallivanting around the globe? It's just not responsible. You know, if you're going to have a midlife crisis, just buy a convertible and get it over with. You don't have to chase a star across the desert for 2 years. The story is scant on details, has a very weak plot, and the characters are never really developed. Imagine pitching the screenplay to a movie producer. Well, see, there are 3 guys, probably rich guys with haughty names like Melchior, Caspar, and Balthazar, and they follow a star across the desert to find Jesus. Rich guys lost in the desert. Sort of a Three Amigos meets Gilligan's Island kind of thing. It's got comedic potential. What happens? I don't know. They follow a star. That's it? Well, I mean, they meet King Herod, who asks them to report back after they find Jesus so he can kill the child. Okay, the producer says. That's a compelling twist. It's not funny, but it's compelling. What happens next? Well, they arrive and give gifts to Jesus. Well, what about King Herod? Oh, nothing really. The 3 guys take a different route home and never report back. How does it end? Well, that is the end. Thanks, the producer says, for coming in, but your story isn't memorable. We're going to pass. But it is memorable. It's been told and retold for nearly 2,000 years. Why? Why? Our common sense and conventional wisdom tell us to be responsible, to be pragmatic. Yet all of the really good stories in human history and mythology involve people chasing stars. The Iliad, the Odyssey, Moses and the Hebrews in the desert for 40 years, Jesus in the desert for 40 days, St. Paul around the Mediterranean, Thomas Jefferson, Thomas Edison, Cesar Chavez, Susan B. Anthony, all of them were star chasers. So what about us? Are we star chasers? How far are we willing to journey beyond our own comfort zones into the dark forest of eye rolls and social criticism in order to encounter the living God? The question before us is not whether the wisdom star still shines, but whether we're willing to follow it. Regardless of what we read in the news, the star shines as bright as ever over the value and dignity of all God's people. It shines upon a solution to homelessness, hunger, genocide, unwanted children, racism, and terrorism. It shines upon a cure to addictions, abuse, hatred, and bigotry. The star shines messages of love, hope, and forgiveness for all to see. And I'm willing to bet that when we close our eyes and look into our own hearts, we sense it. We see it. But do we follow it? The invitation for each of us is to identify the star that calls us by name and then chase it. To be wise men and women, we might need to let go of pragmatism at times, disregard what the neighbors think, embrace the difficulties and impracticalities of the journey, and follow the star. And so what if it isn't attainable in our lifetimes? So what if we ever reach it or not? That's not the point of the story. The story is about the journey, about the pursuit, and about living life as a journey, connecting the dots one moment by one moment, always moving in the direction of deeper and more profound revelatory love, bringing Christ's compassion to life in this world. Small ways that build and build and build and build. So I wanted to wrap up by touching on some of the themes from the last 3 days. First, go where you're called, not where you plan. See, we live in a world, don't we, that tells us when we're young kids, all in high school or even younger, to set goals, set your dreams, but we don't do a good job of listening to where we're called. We don't coach our kids to listen to where we're called. We ask kids as young as 10 years old or even younger, 4 years old, what do you want to do when you grow up? And we never ask them, what gifts do you have and where are you called to go? And then one day we wake up and we're middle-aged and we realize we've been chasing a star and maybe we've reached it and we're still not fulfilled and rich and happy and we're sitting here saying, I'm looking to do something meaningful. I need meaning. So go where you're called, not where you plan. And you're not going to know where you're called if you're busy on that hamster wheel all the time without that centered spiritual prayer life. Secondly, live with presence in the moment. Realize that where you are right now is exactly where you need to be, and you can move forward from here to tomorrow to the next day. But have faith that where you are is a spot on a journey, and it's where you need to be on your journey, and just keep walking into that journey. As you do, third, choose fusion, not friction. We talked about the tension, because there's tension between the ego self and the authentic self. There's tension between head and heart. There's tension between pragmatism and idealism. And we can choose to live with the friction between that. We talked about that the other night. Or we can look toward the fusion. How do we bring this into wholeness, completeness, oneness? Fourth, follow your why, not your what. That star is your why. Compassion, kindness, mercy, forgiveness. Follow and stay focused on the why, because the what is going to burn you out. It always does. It sucks life out of you. The why puts life into you. One of the things I observed, I was telling Father earlier today, that one of the things I really admire about him, I'll admit it too, but one of the things I admire about him and this parish is how steadfastly focused you are on the why. Why, not just what are we doing, but why are we doing it? To bring everything back to, and it feeds life and energy and vitality, because we always focus on the why, not the what. And then fifth, we talked about living inside out, right? Not going about life thinking in terms of how does it affect me, What am I getting out of this? What is the experience I'm receiving? How is this serving me and my interests? Being the consumer, but rather living inside out, from the inside, from the heart, allowing God's love to enter you, stir within you, and flow out of you into the world. Living inside out as contributors, not as consumers. And then 6, to be open to Christ and to be honest with yourself. Because it's really hard for the Holy Spirit to move you forward and to draw you toward purpose and meaning when you've closed because you've already decided what you want to do. You know, it's really, so to just be open and let the Spirit work with where you are and move you, and be honest with yourself and your journey. 7, as Cy Whitehawk would say, just shut up and pray. I mean, can we pass some sort of bill that just turns all social media off for 72 hours? Just a nationwide break from this churn? Because we all just need to shut up and pray. And pray in a listening posture, right? Listen to understand. We talk about listening to understand rather than listening to respond. Just listen to understand. And let the voice of God speak to you in that way. And then finally, chase the stars you may never catch. And it sounds trite. You know, it sounds trite, but go back and say, look, this is about the movement and the motion of my journey. That's what it is. But I need to have a direction in which I'm traveling. And that direction, in and of itself, is meaningful, regardless of what I achieve in the process. I am, in that process, an agent that's bringing love to life in the world. We can all live this way every moment of every day if we choose. In fact, it is the inevitable manifestation of a contemplative life rich in prayer. Our vocation of the moment draws us into mindful awareness of the sacredness of life right now and the effect we are having on the people and creation around us. It asks us to bring our intention to the fore, and in doing so, it teaches us to live from the inside out. I am wholly convinced that we experience deep, meaningful spiritual growth each time we move our focus from task to mission, from what to why. This is equally true whether I'm in the process of shoveling snow from my neighbor's driveway or cleaning my bathroom. Even when walking in the woods, if I focus on my vocation of the moment to surrender ego and become one with creation, I emerge into a deeper spirituality, increasingly aware that each breath is a gift, reminding me that life isn't here to serve me. I am here to serve it. A group of women in my church knit prayer shawls for the sick and blankets for the newly baptized. They do it with faith because seldom are they present when these items are given to a cancer patient or to a frazzled and overwhelmed new mom. They're not in the room when someone is wrapped in the fruits of their labors. What's in it for them, some would ask. Why do they use their limited resources to purchase yarn? Why do they spend so many hours of a waning lifetime doing something from which they receive no benefit? Why do they grind gnarled and arthritic hands to the point of exhaustion to knit something for someone they'll never even know, someone who'll never know they did it? They are sowing seeds for a harvest they will never reap. And in the wisdom of their life, they have discovered that meaning is not something we get from life. It's something we give to life. And I want to really end on that. Meaning is not something we get from life. Meaning is something we give to life, to every intentional thought and movement and engagement and relationship. So please pray with me the mission prayer. Creator God, source of all life and love, guide us as we mission forward into an ever-widening search for meaning, an ever-deepening encounter with understanding, and an ever-unfolding experience of mystery. Lead us to live as the rivers through which the waters of your love flow upon all who you have created. Amen. So thank you. Thank you to all of you. Thank you, Father Bill. Thank you, Hillary. Father, technically Bill. What? Well, see, I meant it though. So, thank you, Father Phil. But thank you so much for being here. I'll be around if you want to have conversation or questions.
So on behalf of Bayard Faith Resources, I really want to thank Father Phil and this wonderful parish. As I was telling Father, I travel across the country, and I have not been home since August 2nd. I am going home tomorrow morning for a quick luggage thing and then heading back out. But I got to tell you, you got it here. This is an awesome parish. And I'm going to be honest with you, please close your ears there, Father, but it's because your pastor will lead, guide, and help, because I learned one word here. Never say the word volunteer. It's called serve. So on behalf of Bayard Faith Resources and being the ambassador of Bayard, part of the Assumptionists from Assumption University and all that, thank you very much for having us here. Thank you, Steve. He's been traveling with me a couple times, and thank you very much. And I will be in the back with Steve. Thank you.
Okay. I just want to thank you, Steve, Deacon Steve. And should we sign him up again when we can? Absolutely. He'll have a new book for next year, The Hole in My Soul. The Hole in My Soul. So maybe next year we'll get him to come back for Lent, and he can talk to us about the hole in my soul. Again, thank all of you for joining us for our mission. And you can get people now. It is available online, so you can watch it on our YouTube channel. So pass it on to some friends. Again, thank you, Steve, for being here.